Hey, it's Michael Douglas. Welcome back to another episode of Dr. Pundit, where we talk about music, not medicine. And three rock songs from 1965 that deserved to hit number one, but just didn't quite get there. These three songs totally deserve to be number one from 1965. They made that such a pivotal year in the decade of the 1960s. And I like to argue that starting in 1964 through 1972, this was a time of the cultural 1960s, not 1960s in the calendar kind of chronological sense, January 1960 to December 1969, but roughly the start of the Beatles' appearance on the Ed Sullivan Show until the early 1970s, when groups like Led Zeppelin, for example, really took rock to the next level. For me, those were the music cultural 1960s. And from 1965, these are the songs that just blow my mind, never hit number one. And the charts have always been a controversial ranking system. And that controversy has only become greater with the introduction of automated viewers and streaming statistics. However, back when these two things really weren't in existence, the Billboard Hot 100 still got, some flack for being quote unquote unfair with respect to their chart rankings. And in 1965, that certainly was the case, at least among, I would say, music aficionados, pop music aficionados, maybe music critics from that time were want to do. Bob Dylan's 1965 single, Like a Rolling Stone, is arguably the most popular single of his career and one of the most iconic songs of the 1960s. It was one of those songs that really marked Bob Dylan's transition into rock and roll, and consequently, both haters and lovers like to listen to this song because it transcends the artist, has a life of its own, it will always have a life of its own. It shook the music world, of course, and fractured the folk foundation on which Bob Dylan built his career. But despite this, it didn't hit number one on the Billboard Hot 100. Following its release, the 6-minute opus by Dylan peaked at number two on the Hot 100, and while many people think it was robbed of a number one spot, some would argue that it fit right in where it belonged. And that is because the song that was holding it back was the iconic Beatles single, Help. So, did Like a Rolling Stone have the legs to climb the mountain? Absolutely. But it was difficult to surpass the Beatles on the charts as they dominated it year after year during the decade. Next up, My Generation by The Who. In 1965, The Who were just beginning to break into the American market. So the lack of a significant chart run with their 1965 single My Generation isn't really all that surprising. However, that doesn't mean that the song wasn't any less deserving of a number one spot on the Billboard Hot 100. And after all, don't a good deal of staunch rock fans and historians consider this one of the greatest rock and roll songs of all time? Released in October of 1965, 3 years to the month before I was born, The Who's My Generation really didn't get far on the Billboard Hot 100. It only got to number 74. Alternatively, it peaked at number two in the UK, just proving that it could have gone to number one in the US if it wasn't for the relative obscurity, and that's a loaded word, of the band The Who. Okay, yeah, I'll take that. Finally, Day Tripper by the Beatles. All right, do the Beatles deserve more number ones than they already have? Well, of course, Beatles fans would say yes. Me, whatever. Whatever charted, whatever didn't, and got airplay. For example, the entire album, Sgt. Pepper's. Okay, no radio-friendly singles, but every song has been played a billion times and everybody knows the album. But I feel inclined to say that Day Tripper did deserve to reach number one on the Billboard Hot 100 following its release. And I only say that because it's a great song. And certainly one of the best the Fab Four released that year. In 1965 alone, the Beatles scored 5 hits on the Hot 100. However, Day Tripper wasn't one of them, as it went only to number 5. Did the Beatles need a 6th number one song that year? Of course not necessarily, but the song surely had the capability to hit the top of the Billboard Hot 100, and that's why I included it in this list. And in terms of sheer quality, yes, it did. And it belongs as one of these 3 songs that definitely deserved to hit number one on the Billboard Hot 100, all for different reasons, And that is my interpretation of the legacy of these songs. Take it or leave it. I'm Michael Douglas. If you like what you see here on the channel, please don't hesitate to like and subscribe. And as the late great Barry White always used to say, let the music play. And I'll see you on the next episode.